Hello everyone, this is me Tsumugi. Welcome back to my Warhammer 40k video. And today we are going to explore some tips and tricks about list building and the new strategy I've developed. It is called the 4 types. So here we go. Now first of all, I just wanted to let you guys know why are you watching this video and how this video is going to help you in the long run when it comes to list writing. Now, have you ever just stumbled upon the problem when you're trying to write a list, and the more you're trying to optimize it, the more you realize that the list you're writing right now, it's very similar to the list you wrote a few days ago, or like a few weeks ago even, that you're basically just writing the same list over and over again with just like minor tweaks here and there, and that itself can be a very frustrating experience because when you're trying to be creative, when you're trying to play something new, but like the more you're trying to optimize, the more you kind of go back to your old habit and you end up with nothing new. So you kind of have to just like write some outlandish list ideas and post it on the internet like Facebook or Reddit, asking for people's opinion, and it kind of just like go down the drain, and like your list idea just never get realized because you don't get enough confirmation. Well, this is why you're watching this video today, because I'm here to teach you some ways on list writing and how you create a focus when you write a list. Okay, so I think the most important part about list writing is first you have to set your winning conditions, because if you don't have like a very clear winning condition, then regardless of how you write your list, you will always lose your focus. And this is extremely important when it comes to list writing, because if you don't have a clear goal, what you end up with is you're trying to achieve everything at once, and then you'll end up getting nothing done. Okay, so you need a very clear winning conditions. That means you gotta give up some and you gotta take some, you gotta give up some. Okay, so of course we have to talk about your strengths and weaknesses. There are no perfect lists in this world. Like, there are no lists that just perfect and win all the games. You can have a very strong list that can win you most games, but there is no way you can write a list that will win you every single game. And that shouldn't be your goal in the very first place. You should have a very clear goal. Say, okay, here's my local meta. I want to win majority of the games. I might lose some here and there, but I want to win as much as I possibly can. So how do I do it? So this is why you're here. I'm about to introduce you the 4 types that I have developed myself. I'm pretty sure like there are other pro players that use a similar formula when it comes to list writing, but this is my own personal interpretation. So yeah, here we go. Now, before we go into the 4 types, I just want to set some definitions and how I define them. Okay, so we have 4 major factors here, or 4 dimensions. We have mission, disruption, versatile, and specialized. Now, what I mean by mission is that you're trying to secure and hold objective markers in a sense that you're trying to survive and not just holding it. Okay, if you're just sending your troop onto an objective and they die the turn after, that's not holding an objective. That's called kamikaze attack, and they just die. When I say secure and hold objective markers, I do mean secure and hold the objective markers, because you have to stay on the objective marker in order to gain point. I mean, just look at the new chapter approved 2019 Eternal War rules. A lot of missions that require you to stay on the point, because you will not earn the point from the objective until your next beginning of your turn. Basically mean you have to send your troop on top of objective marker, and you have to wait a turn and at least let your opponent have a turn to shoot at them, and if they survive, and at the start of the beginning of your second turn, you get to make the point back. So it is very crucial that you have to actually survive on the objective, not just have the mobility to send your troops on them. All right, and next we have the disruption. Now the disruption is the opposite of mission. Okay, where mission is focusing on securing and holding objectives, disruption is about destroying and remove opponent's objective cappers. So your focus as a disruption type player will be killing enemy troop choices or whatever they use to cap objectives. They're pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And then moving on, we have the versatile. Versatile, as the name suggests, is variety in weapons, not only in weapon type, but also in unit type. So weapon type, we know, if you watch my previous video talking about like the types of weapons, like the autocannon weapon, anti-tank weapons, small arms fire, and so on. We have like variety of weapons, right? Those type of weapons, you'll have like a bit of everything, and not just weapons, but it will also apply to the unit type, because when it comes to offensive, you have to take consideration of the weapon types, right? But when it comes to defensive aspect of things, is you can't just focus on one unit type. Say if you only focus on one unit type, such as infantry, then if you run into infantry specialist army, that's specialized against fighting against infantry, you're just gonna crumble. So in order to become more versatile, you need a little bit of infantry, a little bit of vehicle, a little bit of monster creature, flyer, characters, swarm, so on, whatever, right? So you need to have like variety of unit types so you don't get hard countered by an army that's designed to specifically destroy a certain unit type. Okay, so jack of all trades, you guys know what that means. And finally, we have the specialized. Now, specialized is the opposite of versatile. You're focusing on one aspect and one aspect only, and you're pushing it to the far extreme. Not only you're focusing on just the weapon and the unit type aspect, which is the complete opposite I just told you guys about the versatility, but also you're so focused on one aspect of things that if you hard counter your opponent, that you're basically just gonna win in the very first 2 turns. Okay, so that's the specialized aspect of things. All right, so let's move on. So here we have the 4 dimensions set into 4 categories of the types. Okay, this is what I call the 4 types. Okay, so as you can see, type A is versatile plus disruption, type B is versatile plus mission, type C is specialized disruption, and type D is specialized plus mission. Now I will explain what each type does and like their main feature, their strength, their weaknesses, how to play them, how to counter them, and some example list, and so on. I will explain them all in the next slides. But before that happens, okay, I just want to let you guys know that this is not all set in stone. Okay, this is just like a general map for you to guide yourselves through when you're trying to write a list. Okay, what type of player are you? Do you want to focus more on mission? Then you might want to go to the B and D side of things. And if you really enjoy killing enemy unit, then you might want to go to the A and C side of things. And do you want to be like a jack of all trade and then you go A and B? Or if you just want to really specialize because you know your faction can do specialized army really well, then you go C and D and so on. You kind of have to choose between like what's your goal here. For example, let's say I like to play disruption because I'm a very aggressive player, but at the same time I don't want to be like a one-trick pony. I can't just have like all anti-tank. I want a little bit of anti-tank, I want a little bit of anti-infantry, and where do I end up? I end up in type A, which is versatile plus disruption, and that is the type of player I am, and that's the type of list I will be writing. So when I'm writing my list, I will be focusing on the type A aspect of things. I will not worry too much about completing missions. I will not worry too much about bringing objective camping or contesting unit because that's not my focus. So this is how I use the 4 types. Now let's move on to the explanation of every single type. Here we go. So let's start with the type A, the versatile / disruption. This is personally my favorite type because this is just kind of like the personality I have. So what's the main feature of versatile / disruption, the type A? Okay, so the main feature when you look at an army, if it has like versatile firepower, like I said, it has a bunch of it has a little bit of anti-infantry, has a little bit of anti-tank, anti-flyer, anti-character with sniper rifle. It has a little bit of everything. Okay, it has a wide range of firepower. Then you can probably consider that the list is probably a type A list, okay? And also when the list relies heavily on aura or force multipliers, which boosts the damage output potential, then it is also another main feature of a type A list, okay? And also the last but not least is a type A list usually don't have too much of objective holding units, all right? Of course, we're still going to have troops. We're still going to have troops around because we need those command points. But you'll see that those troops are either keeping at the very minimal number, or those troops are used as main combatant unit. Like their role is actually not to sit around and hold objective. Their role is actually go straight forward and kill the enemy combatants. Okay, so what is the primary objective for the versatile / disruption list? Is to identify and eliminate key units. And what do I mean by that? It means that when you're looking at your opponent, you have to ask yourself, okay, I have a lot of tools. Okay, I have anti-tank, I have anti-infantry, I have sniper rifle, I can snipe a character if I really want to. I have all the tools available to me. Now, what do I do to crumble my opponent's list? Because the primary objective of a type A list is you need to be able to defeat your opponent in the very first 2 turns. Because if you don't, you will soon run out of steam. Okay, you will run out of steam really, really fast if you don't do your business fast enough. All right, so when you're playing as a type A list, you need to understand that, okay, What is the biggest threat to me right now? What is the biggest threat to my entirety of my army? What does my opponent rely on? Does my opponent rely on 1 or 2 buffing aura machine? If so, then my main objective will be to remove them from the battlefield, so the rest of the army does not get that buff anymore. Okay, so but since I have a lot of tools that I can play with, it is much easier to achieve that. However, if you waited too long, let's say you wait until turn 3 and turn 4, by then you'll probably lose a lot of unit as well. You will also suffer a lot of casualties. You probably won't have enough tools to deal with that kind of problem, which runs into a potential weakness. That means that you will not have enough troop choices or objective holding unit to make the point for you, and at the same time you do not have enough unit on the table to completely wipe out your opponent. A type A list is a very, should I say, a Zerg list? Like, if you guys play StarCraft, you know what I mean. It's like you just go all in the very first 2 turns, and if the attack fails, it fails, alright? You just lose. But if it succeeds, you will have a very noticeable crushing victory, okay? So the strength of a Type A list is you have a very strong alpha strike potential. Let's say if you go first, and the opponent fail to seize an initiative, and then everything just go as planned, you'll have very high chance to cripple your opponent in the very first 2 turns, okay? And you will snowball your way all the way to the very end game. Sure, you don't have enough objective holding unit, sure, you don't have enough stuff on the table, but you have such an immense firepower on the table that can deal with many different type of problem and unit type that your opponent is throwing at you. There is nothing that's stopping you. All you have to do is have a very strong sense of correct target priority, then you will play to Type A strength. Okay, and also another list I like, another part I like about this type of list is it's very straightforward. It's very simple to operate, and bear in mind, it is simple. It is not easy. Okay, what I mean by simple, it's like, it's what I keep saying in my previous video. It's like, okay, so use anti-tank firepower to shoot at tanks, using anti-infantry firepower to shoot at infantry, blah, blah, blah. It's very simple, very straightforward. You just have to have a correct target priority. You don't have to look at things in bigger picture. You don't have to. You only need to have the ability to identify what your opponent brings. You only need to have the basic knowledge of what your unit does, what does your opponent's unit do, and then you'll be fine. Okay, it's very straightforward, very simple to operate, and the weakness, like I said, if you don't do enough damage in the very first 2 turns, you'll run out of steam, and there are very little room for error. If you got misleaded, or if you just got extremely bad luck in the very first 2 turns, things can go down south very fast, okay? Things can really go bad extremely fast because your army focused so much on offensive firepower, your army focused so much on crippling your opponent in the very first 2 turns, and if you don't do that, you will, like I said, run again and again, run out of steam, okay? And also, more importantly, if you're focusing way too much on killing your opponent and not so much on removing their key objective holding unit, you might end up winning the battle but losing the war. So you might actually be able to table them, you might be able to, like, you know, wipe out majority of things, but your opponent still wins at the end because you have been ignoring their objective camping unit, and they have been making VPs while you're not making any VPs, so you will lose at the end. I mean, yeah, sure, you have a crushing battle, you know, you have a crushing victory on your battle, but you lost the war. So pay attention to what your opponent brings on the table and what they use to contest against the objective holding, because the whole point of a Type A list is to prevent your opponent from gaining VPs through objectives. Okay, some sample lists, including the Kraken Chronos list, which is my favorite. Kraken Chronos list, if you guys don't understand, it's a typical Tyranid list that consists of like Gene Stealers, Hormigons, Swarmlord, and Hive Tyrants, along with a Chronos, double Hive Guard, Exocrane, Neurothrope with Ripper Swarm, and a little bit of Termagants, which is kind of like, we don't really care about holding objective, we just want to dish out as much firepower as we possibly can. Now, Kraken Chronos list has been pretty popular among Tyranid players since 2018, but recently people have been shifting towards the more defensive playstyle like Euromachon or Leviathan, so Kraken Chronos are kind of losing its bit of a, should I say it again? It's running a little bit out of steam. Okay, I promise that's the last time to say that word. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And same thing goes with Tau, you know, the infamous Triple Tide shield drone list pretty much falls into this category as well. They don't have enough troop choices to hold the objective, so they just say, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna fuck your days up. I'm just gonna do Alpha Strike. I will use Kongyun in the very first 2 turns, and I'll dish out all my firepower in the first 2 turns, and that's it. If I win, I win. If I lose, I don't care. Right? That's basically the Tau mentality. Coincidentally, the Necron with their 2019 meta list, which is the Saltac triple DDA with the Doomsai and their Tomb playlists, are also fall into this category. They don't exactly have a lot of troop choices to capture objective. I mean, they have some Immortals, but those aren't for cowling objective. They are just there because they're paying the battalion taxes. More importantly, they are spending more of their point on eliminating opponents' troop units. Okay, this is type A. Okay, very typical, very straightforward, but requires a very keen knowledge on identifying the opponent's key unit, and you need to have a pretty decent skill in terms of Warhammer 40k knowledge, like a database knowledge, and a little bit of a strategic mind. Okay, this is a very easy list, very simple list to play, but you need to have at least some intermediate level of Warhammer 40k knowledge, at least on the unit. Otherwise, you're going to have a very hard time to identify what is actually the real threat and what is not. Alright, so that's type A. Moving on, we have the Type B list. It's the versatile / mission. Type B is a little bit different. It's also versatile, but it focuses more on mission. These type of lists has been dominating the meta since 2018, and they are still going to be dominating meta for the time for the days to come, or I mean for the years to come. If assuming like the whole mission has been set the way it is, then it will be. So what are the main features of Type B? They present you a variety of threats on the table. There are threats on the table, but they aren't there to kill you. They usually have good numbers or mobility to control the entire map, and they have a bit and pieces of everything. A Type B list, even though they have a bit of everything, it might look something like this, okay? It might look something like a Type A list because, I mean, Type A has a little bit of everything, right? The main differences between Type A and Type B is that Type B focus a lot more on holding objective. They are focusing a lot more on unit that can actually have the ability to contest the objectives. So if you're looking at a list that has a bit of everything, but they are more emphasized on the troop choices, then that's your signal that it might be a Type B list, all right? What is the primary objective of a Type B list? They want to mislead you. They want to shift your attention towards one single aspect of things. Okay, so let's take the infamous Castellan list. Okay, the Castellan list has been it hasn't been doing so well recently. I mean, it kind of went downhill, but back when it was still very good, like back in 2018 and 2019, when Castellan Knight was still dominating the meta, basically what the Knight list does is they want you to focus on Castellan and Castellan alone. Okay, while the rest of the entire Astra military and brigade just capture the objective, and that's how they win. Okay, because when back in the day, people were focusing on, okay, so how do we kill Castellan? Castellan is too OP. It's like the firepower is so crazy, and like it's really hard to take it down. It has like rotate iron shield, blah blah blah. Everyone's focusing on the wrong shit. Okay, people are focusing on Castellan because Castellan is just this one huge aspect that Type B player wants you to focus on. But in reality, they don't even care if Castellan survives or dies, okay? They don't even care because all they care is they have their unit, their entire Kalachin brigade unit, like the 6th infantry squad, to spread out through the map and control and holding all the objective while you are trying to take one single knight down. And that's how they win, okay? If Castellan was really OP as people say it was, then why bother taking Astra Militarium detachment? Just take like triple Castellan and you just win the game, right? But why aren't people doing that? It's because Castellan wasn't good enough to hold on its own. It needs the support of Astra Militarium to actually capture the objective in order to win. Okay, which brings me to the strength of this list. Okay, the strength of this list is they are good at staying on the board. Okay, they don't really have that much of firepower, and they're somewhat predictable in their movement because you know they are going to pile in on the objective and they're just gonna sit there for as long as they possibly can. You can't really counter them because they don't just focus on one aspect of things, okay? Let's say if I bring like a triple Castellan list, okay? Or if I bring a Castellan along with like Limarov's battle tank, then it's very easy to counter me because all you have to do is prepare a bunch of anti-tank weapon, then you'll win, right? But the problem was that the Castellan was so tough on its own that when people focus so much on bringing anti-tank weapons, they lose the focus and they forgot to bring enough of anti-infantry weapon to deal with the Catachan Brigade. And that's how the Type B list was able to win games after games after games. Because they're trying to trick you to think that the Castellan was the biggest threat you need to take out, but in reality is, oh, I just gotta capture the map and then I win, alright? And the strength is also, they're very flexible and they're very adaptable because there are a lot of moving part of a Type B list, okay? They can afford to move around. They don't have to sit in one giant bubble of aura or buffing ability to maximize their damage, because that's not their point. I mean, that's not their goal. They don't have to maximize their damage output. All they have to do is to spread out their influences and survive. And at the same time, trick you to think that you gotta take my shit out, because if you don't, he's gonna cause you a lot of trouble. But in reality, the real thing that's causing you trouble is the one that's secretly holding and capturing the objectives. Okay, so this is the Type B list. The best way to counter a Type B list is to pay attention to what they do on the map. Okay, like let's take the Castellan list once again, for example. All right, so the Castellan list, what is the best point? What is the best way to defeat a Castellan list? The best way is to just ignore the Castellan. Okay, if you do not have enough firepower, let's say if your list is more like a Type A list, versatile / disruption, you simply do not have enough firepower to kill a Castellan in the very first 2 turns, then don't do it. Then do not do it. Focus your firepower on the rest of their army. Because if you just wipe out the rest of your army and let the Castellan live, the Castellan itself is not going to be able to control all the objectives on the map. I mean, sure, it still has like immense firepower. It can still potentially wipe your army out, but it's still better than trying to kill Castellan and let the rest of the army take the board than to have like, you know, just, okay, I'm just gonna wait here and like shoot a Castellan and see what happens, right? It's much better that way. It's just much better to eliminate the rest of their army and just ignore this false threat that Type B player is constantly present to you. Alright, and the same thing goes with the Iron Hand list. You know, Iron Hand pretty much does the same thing. They have this Invictor war suit, you know, basically spamming onto your face in the very first turn because they can infiltrate. And the same thing goes with like their Stormhawk or Storm Talon or like Leviathan Dreadnought and so on. You know, they have all this crazy shit that tell you that, hey, look at me, I'm very scary, big and scary, come attack me, right? But the real threat in the Iron Hand list are the intercessors. The intercessors are the one that's actually holding an objective and staying alive. Alright, this is a Type B list. This is currently like the most powerful list in the meta right now. You can write your own version of it, but not every single faction is capable of writing a successful B list. Alright, for example, Tau is not able to do this. Like, Tau does not have strong enough of a TP in order to write a Type B list, but you know, Space Marine, Imperial Guard, Tyranid, they can. Alright, so that's Type B. Now moving on to the Type C, the specialized / disruption list. Now this is going to be very quick because you guys know what this list means, okay? Do you know what C stands for? The C stands for cheese, alright? It's a cheese list. Okay, why do I say it's a cheese list? Okay, what's the main feature of a Type C list? It focuses on one offensive aspect and one aspect only. So let's say this guy just brings nothing but last cannon, or he just brings nothing but mortar and heavy bolters. Okay, they have a very clear goal. They want to do one thing and one thing only, and they are completely disregarding everything else. Okay, and they often have very little to no objective contesting unit. Okay, like pay attention to my wording here. It's not objective holding unit, it's objective contesting unit. Meaning these type of lists usually don't even have a lot of troop choices. They just don't give a shit about troop choices because like they don't even plan to capture objective in the very first place. Okay, they can hold objective with the rest of their unit, you know, like elite slot, HQ slot, fast attack slot, and so on. But they don't really want to focus too much on troop choices unless they want the command point via the battalion detachment or the brigade detachment. Otherwise, they don't really care. Okay, they don't really care. They just want to focus on one aspect only. And the best way to do that is to spam and spam and spam. They spam the same shit over and over again. So what example do we have here? We have the Eldar Flyer spam list that was very popular back in 2018 and 2019. And we also have the latest Leman Russ Battle Tank list, which does nothing but spam Leman Russ Battle Tank, okay? They have like 3 tank commanders with like, I don't know, 6 or 7 Leman Russ Battle Tank with like Demolisher Cannon because they recently got buffed. And they don't even bring like Guardsmen anymore. Like, they don't even give a shit about Guardsmen because, like, what's the point of bringing Guardsmen? Like, Marine Bolter Discipline are gonna massacre like a toughness 3 Guardsmen anyway. So they just think, you know what? Why not we just bring a bunch of tank which Space Marine meta is currently suffer against because they don't have enough last cannon, or you know, they shouldn't bring that many last cannon because their whole point is to capture objective. They don't have enough fire anti-tank firepower. The Astra Military's latest strategy is to just spam Leman Russ Battle Tank and see what happens, alright? And the same thing goes with like a Tyrannus Kronos shooting list. Kronos shooting list is pretty popular among with like new players, and I don't want to sound like an asshole, but like for noobs, like noobs love Kronos shooting list so fucking much. I don't know why. It's just they just find it very easy. It's like they want Tyrannus to sit and shoot because Kronos give you the ability to reroll once to hit in shooting phase as long as you remain stationary. And they feel like, okay, we have Hive Guards, we have Exocrine, we have Tyrannophags, we have like Dakophags, we have all this shooting unit, and they kind of just want to sit back and shoot. I mean, yes, of course, a list like this can potentially win you some games versus a very specific army. But then again, this is a cheese type of list, okay? Which means like your weaknesses is very, very obvious. You are very powerless against a hard counter. Say you play a Kronos shooting list and you walk into like an Orc player that has nothing but boys. Like, what are you gonna fucking do? You're just gonna die. Because boys, they don't give a shit about your Impaler Cannon or your Bioplasmic Cannon or your Rupture Cannon. They don't really care. They don't care about your Heavy Venom Cannon either because there are so many of them. There are so many boys. And they don't even have a single vehicle. They're just gonna spam boys and they will just flood you. And there is nothing you can do as a Kronos shooting list. Like, nothing. You are completely powerless against a hard counter. And in the tournament setting, unless you know everyone in the tournament, which is very unlikely, but if you're playing like a very small local tournament, like I don't know, maybe 8 players, and you know all of them, you know what army they're gonna bring, you could potentially bring a Type C list to tailor against them, and then you will win that tournament. But everyone's just gonna hate you from that day on. So like, what's the point of doing this, right? don't be a Type C player, please. But I mean, Type C does have its potential. Okay, it has a very strong shock factor. When you walk into a tournament opponent, and then you see one of these lists, like a Leman Russ Battle Tank spam list and Flyer spam list, like there are a million things going through your mind. It's like, oh my god, how am I gonna still deal with this? I don't have enough anti-tank. I don't have enough anti-flyer. I don't have enough blah blah blah. Right? I don't have enough of this. What do I do, right? A Type C list can present some shock factor that just confuses your opponent and they don't exactly know what to do. Alright, and even if they do trying to start shoot you off, you still have ample supply of backups. Say let's take the Leman Russ Battle Tank for example once again, okay? I have like 7 to 10 Leman Russ Battle Tank, okay? You can kill 2 of them in the first two turns, but who gives a fuck? I still have like 6 more. I have like 5 or 6 more. There's just so many more Leman Russ Battle Tank for you to shoot at. Like, I don't care if I lose 1 or 2, okay? They have ample supply of backups, so they are somewhat durable, but not in the sense that their unit are very durable, but more like because they spend so much of their point and their resources on one type of unit. Even if you remove a small portion of it, it's still not going to do too much of damage to them as a whole. These type of lists require a very specific counter, like I said, which is you know, piggybacking to what I said about their weaknesses. It's the only way to deal with this type of list is to have a very specific counter. And if you do not have a very specific counter, you're going to suffer and you probably won't even be able to beat a Type C list. Alright? You know why Eldar Flyer spam list is so annoying? No one in the right mind will bring anti-air list just to fight Eldar. Like, nobody does that. Okay? Nobody fucking does that. Nobody brings like a specific anti-air list just to fuck with Eldar, because they know there are still many other more armies that they need to deal with. They still have to deal with the Imperial Guard with Imperial Knight list, they still have to deal with Space Marine, they gotta deal with Tyrannus, they gotta deal with Dark Angels, and so on. Like, there's just so many armies to deal with. Like, anti-air is the last thing they worried about. All right. So when you're writing a Type C list, you gotta find like a niche that nobody in your local meta has the ability to deal with. Okay. Say if you're fighting, say if your local meta is filled with, say, Tyranids player, right? Let's say your local meta is filled with Tyranids player. What is the best counter to the Tyranids player? Just bring a bunch of vehicles, right? Bring a bunch of high toughness vehicles and then see what happens. And the Tyranids will be completely powerless against your vehicle assault or whatever, right? So that's one of the examples. Then you can tailor-made a list just to fuck with your local meta. But like, please, once again, let me just tell you guys, don't do shit like this. You'll get hated in your local store. So you only use a Type C list when you want to teach someone a lesson, all right? Or when some cocky fuck walk into your store and say, nobody can defeat his list, then you can tailor a list against him, which is a Type C list basically. Type C is cheese, it's list tailoring, and it's very risky in tournament, but you know what? It gets the job done, all right? It gets the job done. The primary objective of this list is a complete annihilation, and you want to finish the game in the very first turn one, all right? So that's pretty much it. That's the list for Type C. Finally, we have the Type D list, the specialized mission list. Oh man, do I love this type of list. These type of lists are the one that has the highest potential to win local tournament, but not ITC. Alright, let me explain, okay? So what is the main feature of Type D list? They focus on defensive aspect and one defensive aspect only. So opposite of a Type C, which focus on one offensive aspect, these type of lists focus on one defensive aspect, which means that they're going to look through their codexes and they're going to find out what is the best combo they can offer that provide the most survivability, and they're going their way to the far extreme in order to achieve that. Okay, they're pushing defensive capability to the far extreme. So the main feature of this is they usually present a numerous or durable contesting unit. And bear in mind, once again, let me just elaborate a little bit more. Contesting is not the same as holding. All right, anything that's not a flyer can hold the objective, but only troop choices or the selected few, such as custodies, have the ability to contest the objectives. So if you see your opponent brings a lot of unit that has the potential to contest the objective, that is your signal that they might go for a Type D list, okay? But the difference between a Type D and a Type B list, because Type B also brings a lot of contesting unit, is that they usually tend to go a more stacking type of formation, okay? Where Type B focus on spreading out and control the entire map by having a little bit of everything in all over the fucking place. Type D focus more on just having a cluster of balls sticking together, and they all provide buff to each other, and they are just completely indestructible because they're all together. They're all stacked together in one small places, and it's really hard to remove them. That's the main feature of a Type D list, okay? So what is the primary objective of Type D? Obviously, as the name suggests, your whole point is to hold the objective for as long as you possibly can, all right? And your main objective is not to do damage, is to survive the damage. And opposite from a Type C, opposite from Type B, which is shifting attention towards one aspect, okay? In Type B list, it's like, hey, look at this guy. This guy is very powerful. Like, take care of him. Otherwise, he's gonna cause you a lot of trouble. Where Type D is opposite. Type D want you to not focus on one aspect, and they want you to focus on your army as a whole. So so what does that mean? Okay, let's take the Tyranids Swarm list for example. What is the typical Tyranids Swarm list? A Tyranids Swarm list is usually Jormungand with Leviathan for the added bonus of survivability, and they have Venomthropes, Malanthropes, Maleceptors for -1 to hit and -1 to strength, Stratagem, and so on. They have a lot of defensive bonuses that is provided by a selected few units. All right. So what the Tyranid player want you to do is to not pay too much attention on those buffing machines. They want you to focus on the swarm as a whole. Hey, look at my Termagant. The Termagant has like -1 to hit, has -1 to strength, and they have like +1 armor even if out in open. They're so powerful, there's no way you can take care of them. Deal with it, right? That's what the Type D player want you to think. But in reality, the best way to break a Type D list is to focusing on their buffing machine. Focus on their buff provider and they will crumble super fast. Alright? The same thing goes for Dark Angel with their Green Wing list. I mean, Dark Angel has been should I say, out of market for quite a while, because they are, you know, ever since the fall of Ultramarine Gunline, the Green Wing kind of falls with them, because like the problem with Type D is like they're very slow. They're not a very fast reactionary unit. They're just very slow. They kind of just like cluster fuck into one single objective and they just sit there and do nothing. Alright, there are certain missions that where Type D lists can really shine, but most of the time when there's like more than 4 objective markers, Type D is going to be pretty bad when it comes to that kind of missions, because those type of missions require to spread out, but for a Type D list to spread out means that you can potentially lose your buffing capability, and they rather stay together. Okay, so they're kind of slow, but not in a sense because they are slow moving, but because they have to maintain the coherency and their formation in order to get the maximized buffing effect. Alright, and also they have very weak firepower. They can't really retaliate. They have spent all their point and resources on staying alive. They usually don't have too much firepower to fight back. Okay, they really don't. I mean, sure, they can, you know, they can retaliate a little bit, but they can't go out of their way just to kill one single unit. Let's say you have like a Ripper Swarm sitting on like the far right hand side of the map, holding an objective. There is no way a Type D list will have any arsenal under their sleeve to remove that Ripper Swarm, because that means they have to go out their way. That means breaking their buff chain. That means they will break apart. You know, they're just not gonna do that. They're just gonna, you know what? This point, I'm just gonna hold it, and I will win. That's how I'm gonna play, right? That's the Type D type of list, okay? And also, obviously, the reason why they can do that is because they have the highest staying power, and they are very simple to operate, and they're really, really hard to remove, okay? So a Type D list is like, do you see that objective over there? Yeah, I want that objective. That's mine now. Like, you can fuck off right there. That's my objective now. So that's pretty much what Type D list plays out, okay? Conclusion? What does this all mean? Okay, so regardless of what type of list you're trying to play, it doesn't matter if it's A, B, C, or D, feel free to review it and add your own personal interpretation to it, but that's my own personal framework when it comes to list writing. I think the biggest thing I want to share with you guys today is to really play to your faction's strength. You know, some factions, such as Tau, they're not exactly good at playing, like say, a mission type list. Okay, they're not exactly good at playing a Type B or a Type D list because their troop choices are kind of weak. So they're forced to focus on Type A or Type C list, which is disruption, and they can be versatile disruption or they can be specialized disruption. Okay, doesn't matter which they pick. You have to play to your faction's strength. You really have to look at your codex, and that requires experience. That requires multiple games on the table. That requires more than just writing lists on your battle scribe. It requires you to actually sit down and play the game. Alright, so give your list some time. Don't just like, okay, I tried this list sucks, I'm just gonna give up on this list. Sometimes you might walk into your hard counter, alright? So for instance, let's say you play a Type C list, which really, once again, I strongly, highly recommend to not do this, but let's say you play a Type C list and you walk to your hard counter and then you just got completely annihilated and you're just like, oh my god, this list sucks, I'm just gonna stop playing it altogether. But that's not true. It's just that you just happen to walk into a hard counter that your list is just really particularly weak against, okay? You just had a bad day, you know, that you just walk into a wrong guy. I mean, contrary, if you win a game with your list, don't get too happy about it. You might walk into the list that you're designed to counter. Say if you play like a Leman Russ battle tank list, and then you walk into a guy who has nothing but only anti-infantry weapon, and you win easily, and then you just go on internet and say, hey, my fucking Leman Russ battle tank list spam worked. You know, it fucking worked, and so you guys all should try, you know, and you kind of just trick a lot of people to thinking about that Leman Russ battle tank spam is like the way to go. But when they play it and they run into like a list with any sort of anti-tank firepower, they're just gonna have a very different experience than what you have. Alright? So it doesn't matter what you play, set a goal, but don't go extreme, okay? Remember, the 4 types is just a general map for you to think about when you're trying to write your list, okay? Maybe my faction is good at doing A and C, then I'm gonna focus a little bit more on that. When I'm trying to focus more resources on disrupting my opponent, aka killing them or remove them from the objective camping, then I probably won't invest too much on holding and contesting objective because that's not my goal. So whenever you're writing lists and then you feel a little bit of, I don't know what to do. I kind of want to do everything, but like I got nothing done at the end. Just think about your goal. Set a goal. Focus on one type and really work towards it. Then you should have no problem on writing a wonderful list for yourself. Okay. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will be leaving for Taiwan a few days later. I will be playing my Tyranid list, which happens to be a Kraken Chronos list. It's a Type A versatile disruption list, and because I'm that type of player. So let me know what you guys think about my idea about the 4 types. This is just my personal framework, but I don't know how you guys interpreted this. And just give me any sort of feedback. I'm willing to listen, and I'll see you guys later.